I'd like to start off by reading Psalm 62. Truly my soul waiteth upon God, from him cometh my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will ye imagine mischief against a man? Ye shall be slain, all of you, as a bowing wall shall ye be, and as tottering fence. Thou only consult to cast him down from his excellency. Thy delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. My soul wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. And God is my salvation and my glory. The rock of my strength, my refuge is God. I would like to start off by saying that my grandfather was one of the greatest men on the planet. He would always drop what he was doing when asked to play basketball or football or baseball with us. I remember most of the time after church when we would go home with him, he would talk about how great of a message was preached, and then he would go on and on about stuff I've never even heard. Most of the time I had no clue what he was talking about. But he never hesitated to show me what he was talking about in the Bible. He had so much knowledge of the Word of God, it's not even funny. He was also a grandfather to everyone. One time, Heaven was babysitting us, and she had made about 6 pizzas, and he walks in with a bunch of Little Caesars. And as I said earlier, he was a grandpa to everyone. We would have practices coming in, not right after school, but about 5 o'clock. So he would pick us up and take us to his house, and sometimes we'd have friends come over. And so we'd go play basketball, and they wouldn't be expecting a 68-year-old man to be as good as he was at basketball. And then when me and him would go play one-on-one, I'd ask him what team he'd want to be, and he'd always make up some crazy name like the Jayhawks or the Tuna Fish. Now every time I go and shoot a shot and I make it, I can hear him saying in my ear, "You little rat." He's always been a fighter ever since Vietnam, and I remember every time he'd get sick or something, it wouldn't really affect him. You could tell that he was hurting, but he would never show it. He always showed his love for the Lord through Bible verses, sitting down and talking with us about it. And what I thought was pretty cool is this Christmas, he'll be able to spend Christmas with the person who the season's all about. I wanted to finish off by saying that most people view superheroes as someone with super strength or who goes around saving people, but mine's much better than that. His name was Richard Bayonne. May you never be forgotten, Grandpa. I love you forever.
Amen.
Well, I thought at first I would just talk, and I thought I'll never stop because there's so many stories to tell. So I began to jot them down on just little things, and how do you begin to talk about what someone has meant to you, for 36 years. So I just began to list things, and it's really just kind of a thank you, Dad, for giving me a normal Cajun life for a little boy. And some of those things are like everything in your life is almost brand new used. That's how it's described. You had everything in life was used, especially your boat motors. And, I never realized that actually boats and motors were sewed together, because ours never were. And I didn't realize that there were a thing as a boat ramp. Because when we went fishing, we parked 2 miles at least from the bayou, and we had to carry the boat and the motor separate. So it was years before I saw all of it together on a trailer, and I thought, it's a great idea. I never thought of that. And when you did go, you didn't set trot lines very far because more than likely the motor was going to quit. And you were going to have to paddle back. So you either fished close or you fished upstream so you could float back. One thing as a kid that I remember is, as a little boy, you're the turtle watcher. Because when you're driving down the back roads, you had to look out the windows for turtles. Because if you saw one, and I remember we were heading to Lafayette. We were on some back roads in Low-Water, Louisiana. And we passed over this bridge, and I was looking, and just out of the corner of my eye, I saw a snapping turtle about to go into a pool of water. And I said, "Dad, there's a turtle." Well, they slam on the brakes. Everybody jumps out of the truck. We go running back to the bridge, and it had gone into like a pool of water that was pretty deep, and he could see it. Dad's taking off his clothes and jumping in the water. And so that's just memories that that I have. Anywhere you went, as a kid, you had to watch for turtles, and it didn't matter. They slammed on the brakes and everybody got out. Yeah, the girls too. If you were a kid, that was your job. They had to watch the road and watch for the turtles. I remember free crawfish is the best crawfish. Not that we stole any. Don't take that the wrong way. But towards the end of crawfish season, they drain the lakes. And so you'll see people everywhere. They're all around, we call them gullies. And I remember Dad and I would go late at night, we were at this gully, and when they drain the lakes, all the crawfish just wash out, and they're gathered just thousands. And so we're there, and it's sloppy, it's muddy, but we're getting just net after net of crawfish. Well, also that come out at that time are water moccasins because they eat. And so I'm losing it because I don't know how many snakes are there with us. And I'm trying to step on them, and I'm just mashing their heads into the mud, and it's not doing any good. And Dad's he quit with the net because he couldn't get enough. So he was grabbing them by the handfuls, and he was picking up snakes and everything and throwing them into the bucket. I was losing it. I didn't know what to do. And that was normal, And for me, that was normal. It's just what I grew up doing.
It is normal.
I remember alligators, you see swamp people. Well, that was the first one that I knew that did stuff like that. We were driving, I believe it was Brother Johnny Campbell, and we were going down the road, and the thing about Cajuns, when someone says stop, 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 they don't ask questions. And they stop in the middle of the road. And so I just remember Dad said, "Stop, stop, stop, stop." And I'm in the back seat, Blake and I, and he jumps out, and Johnny jumps out, and Dad's over there on the side of the road, and he's pulling this 4 or 5 foot alligator out of the water by the tail, and Johnny didn't even ask questions. He grabbed some tape and rope, whatever he could find, and he ran over there with him, and they tied it up, threw it in the back, and we kept going. It was going. I don't know where we went. We probably went to the store, but and as a kid, temporary blindness is okay. Especially because usually you have it during frog season when it first starts, because you have to go check all the lights and make sure they work. And so you have to look at it and turn it on. And, all the lights are big headlamps, and they shine for about a half mile. And so for about a week there, your eyes they just constantly get dilated because you're checking all your lamps and if the batteries need to be replaced. Because when you go frogging, the worst thing you want is for your light to go out, because you'll never get any frogs. And so for about a week there, in spring, we were always temporarily blind because we were shining lights in each other's eyes. I remember noodling. My dad was a noodler, and I never did that. That was one thing I did not do. And I remember him and Russell Carrier were sailing and noodling one day, and we had I just remember just nets of fish and frogs. And so Dad was, he was gung-ho, and he was going to get a turtle. And so he jumps in the water, and he's going up and down this canal. We got to a real deep part, and so he's just kind of swimming around, and he feels a hole, and he sticks his head in there and then jerks out a turtle. And I just remember thinking, there's no way I'll ever do that. And this is before I knew what noodling was. But fish or turtles, it didn't matter. I remember snake whips as a kid. If you've never seen a snake whip, you can try it at home. You just grab it by the tail and you swing it and pop the head off, just like a whip. I never did it. I didn't have the courage, but Dad did. He said he used to he told very few stories of Vietnam, but he said there were so many snakes that they made a game out of it. They would just whip them at each other. Growing up as a kid, I always thought kitchens were outside. Because when you cook Cajun food, it stinks most of the time, turtles and things like that. So we had outdoor kitchens. So it's a long time before. We cooked inside, but just about everything was cooked outside. And about every home in Mamu has an outdoor kitchen. There were always two, and most of the kitchen was done outdoors. I also remember you love family like there's no tomorrow. Dad loved his family. He did anything for them at any time. I remember it didn't matter. We had all-night funerals when someone passed. We were there all night. 24 hours through the night. We'd sleep on the chairs or wherever. And I also remember that you love the Lord with all your heart. And that was one thing Dad really, really did with every ounce of energy he had was he loved the Lord. As my dad, as my hero growing up, and even as a 36-year-old, I thought, there's not anything he couldn't do. I had seen it all. And this was normal life for me. It was kind of a shocker when I went elsewhere and saw other people that live normal lives. But, as I got older, more mature, I realized, man, he could really do everything, anything. You didn't pay anybody to do anything for you. You did. Because you didn't have the money, and two, you could figure it out. You may tear it up 2 or 3 times, but at some point you'll figure it out. But I also realized that there were things he couldn't do. One, he couldn't say no. Ever. He couldn't help but love you. And he couldn't help but be your friend. He couldn't be impatient with me or for anyone for that matter. Dad was the most patient person I knew. He couldn't help but love his country. He couldn't pass up a good deal on a piece of property. Somebody who was down and out always found him and said, hey, I've got this land for sale. And so Dad owned a new piece of property. He couldn't get over it if the Saints or LSU were losing. Oh, no. He couldn't. He couldn't go to town or to the store without talking to everybody. And after he talked to them, I realized they were a cousin somewhere along the way. He couldn't stop loving the Lord or studying His Word. He couldn't help but tell me every day that he loved me. He wouldn't trade me for a barrel of potatoes. Even at the age of 36. And I saw he would tell the boys the same thing. There's so many life lessons and experiences that I was given that I would be here for a while telling them all. There's one thing, though, that he gave me that forever changed me, and that's his love. Dad gave his love. He filled my heart and life with so much love that it was almost more than my heart could handle. He showed me how to love people, to love the Lord. He showed me how to love my wife and to love my boys. There wasn't anyone who met him that didn't feel the love of Christ flowing out of him. And so as he was in the hospital, the day that we found Dad, it was a tough day. And so I prayed, Lord, I really wouldn't want that to be the last memory of my dad. And his love was always coming out of him. And so we was at the hospital, and I think it was Thursday at the time he got there. It was about lunchtime, and his church had brought us some Thanksgiving lunches. And so he hadn't really said or did anything for a good while. We're getting ready to go eat, and they were moving his pick line or something, and I guess it was bugging him. So he started saying something to the nurse, and everybody had kind of walked out, so I stopped, and I walked up, and I said, Dad, I just want you to know I'm here. He said, okay. And I said, I just want you to know Aunt Tanya made it. She's okay, because he always worried if he heard somebody's voice, he'd been worrying. I said, she made it fine. They're okay. And I said, Dad, I just want you to know I love you. And he looked at me, or he didn't look at me, he couldn't look, but he just, out of his mouth, he said, I love you too. And I just said, you know what, that was my dad. He always had love for everybody. So I just want to say, Dad, I love you, and it's been an honor to be